This DC neighborhood was basically left for dead after the riots in 1968. Abandoned, broken, and totally written off. But what if I told you it's now one of the hottest housing markets in the city? We're talking million-dollar homes, booming restaurants, and an 11% price jump in just 1 year. A street corridor didn't just bounce back, it did the impossible. Let's dig into what really flipped the script. So, to really get why A Street's transformation is such a big deal, we've got to go back to the beginning. Because this neighborhood wasn't always struggling. During the late 1800s, A Street was actually one of DC's busiest commercial spots. Picture this: trolley cars rumbling down the middle of the street, department stores packed with shoppers, theaters lighting up the night. For decades, A Street was basically DC's main street for the Northeast Side. People from all over came here to shop, eat, hang out. But then, April 1968 happened. After Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, riots erupted across America, and DC got hit hard. A Street became ground zero for a lot of the unrest. Buildings that had been there for generations burned to the ground. Family businesses that had served the community for decades looted and destroyed. In just a few days, the heart was ripped out of the neighborhood, and then nothing for decades. The aftermath was brutal. Insurance company redlined the area. They flat out refused to cover businesses that wanted to rebuild. Banks wouldn't approve loans. The city government was dealing with its own money problems throughout the 70s and 80s that basically left A Street to fend for itself. While other riot-damaged areas of DC eventually bounced back, A Street stayed empty. Hollow storefronts, vacant lots, boarded up buildings everywhere. Crime went through the roof as everything fell apart. People would literally avoid driving down A Street if they could help it. I mean, why wouldn't they? This cycle of abandonment dragged on for decades. But here's the thing, beneath the surface, something was happening. The community never gave up. Residents who stayed through the hard times started organizing. The few small businesses that managed to hang on became anchors for the neighborhood. The first real turning point came in the early 2000s with the reopening of the Atlas Performing Arts Center. This historic theater from the 1930s had been sitting empty since the riots. A group of local activists and arts lovers raised money to buy and renovate the building, turning it into a multi-venue performing arts complex. When the Atlas reopened in 2006, it sent a message. Something new was possible for A Street. The city finally took notice. DC's Office of Planning created the A Street Northeast Strategic Development Plan, setting up a framework to bring the area back. They gave grants to small businesses willing to take a chance on the corridor. Tax breaks encouraged property owners to fix up historic buildings instead of knocking them down. One of the coolest things about A Street's comeback is how they preserve the old architecture. Unlike other neighborhoods where developers bulldoze everything, A Street has kept its historic character. Those beautiful Victorians and early 1900s buildings that survived the riots had been carefully restored, giving the neighborhood authentic roots and personality. The early pioneers who invested in A Street when everyone else had written it off, they deserve some serious credit. They saw potential where others just saw problems. They knew that A Street's central location, historic buildings, and strong community foundation made it ready for a comeback, if only someone would take that first step. Pretty interesting, right? Now, let's bring it back to the present and talk about what makes A Street such a great place to live in 2025. Now, one of the main reasons this neighborhood has blown up in its perfect mix of being connected but still feeling like a real neighborhood. The game changer for A Street was definitely the DC streetcar. After years of delays, so many delays, when the streetcar finally started running in 2016, connecting 8th Street to Union Station, it gave the neighborhood that crucial transit link it needed. 8th Street wasn't isolated anymore. Suddenly, it was directly connected to the Amtrak, MARC, BRE, and the Red Line Metro. That's huge for residents who work downtown or travel a lot. But what really makes A Street great is how walkable it is. The corridor stretches for 14 uninterrupted blocks, creating what urban planners call a complete street, though I just call it awesome. You can literally walk from 3rd Street all the way to 17th Street and experience a constantly changing scene of shops, restaurants, venues, and homes. There's an energy to the street that's hard to describe, but impossible to miss when you're there. People are always out and about, grabbing coffee, shopping, meeting friends, creating that buzzy street life that makes city neighborhoods feel alive. The 2025 version of A Street has doubled down on being super pedestrian friendly. The sidewalks are wider in many sections now, creating more space for outdoor dining and just hanging out. Street tree lines most of the corridor, giving some much needed shade and softening all that concrete and brick. Bike lanes connect 8th Street to the rest of DC's cycling network, making car-free living totally doable for residents. And one of the coolest developments that has been all over the new public spaces popping up throughout the neighborhood. Those planned green spaces and views, those little pedestrian passageways between buildings, are transforming what used to be sketchy alleys and empty lots into community gathering spots. Behind several of the new mixed-use buildings, you'll find these cute pocket parks with benches, landscaping, and sometimes even small performance areas for neighborhood events. Plus, the housing along 8th Street is this fascinating mix of old and new. Historic row houses from the late 1800s stand right next to sleek, modern condo. This mix creates great visual interest, but also gives you housing options at different price points. And whether you're looking for a character-filled Victorian with original woodwork or a modern condo with all the fancy new amenities, 8th Street has both. Speaking of amenities, 8th Street in 2025 is packed with all the stuff urban dwellers want. Boutique fitness studios are everywhere, offering everything from HIIT workouts to yoga and Pilates. Several co-working spaces have opened, perfect for the growing number of remote workers who live in the neighborhood. And don't even get me started on the coffee shops. They're on practically every block, providing those crucial third places where a community happens between home and work. But what makes this urban renaissance particularly cool is how it's happened without destroying what was already there. New construction has mostly filled in empty lots or replacing buildings that were falling apart, while intact historic structures have been renovated and repurposed. The result is a neighborhood that feels both historic and totally current, connected to its past but energetically moving towards its future. Now, let's talk about what might be the most obvious part of 8th Street's transformation. It's become one of DC's best spots for food, drinks, and having a good time. But quick intro before we keep going. I'm Ryan Butler, your go-to real estate guide here in DC. And if you're liking what you're seeing so far, go ahead and tap that like button and subscribe. I share weekly videos on the top neighborhoods, market updates, and new projects, and everything you need to know about living in the city. Hit subscribe so you're always in the loop. When I say 8th Street has become a foodie paradise, I'm not kidding around. The food scene has absolutely exploded with options from casual eats to fancy dining experiences. What makes it special isn't just that the food is good, it's the incredible variety and creativity you'll find. Take Makedo, for example. This place is so hard to describe because it's doing its own thing entirely. Is it a restaurant? Yeah. Serving some of the best Cambodian and Taiwanese fusion foods in the city. Is it a coffee shop? Also yes, with a first floor cafe and amazing espresso drinks. Is it a retail space? Again, yes. Upstairs you'll find cool streetwear and designer stuff. This kind of hybrid concept has become 8th Street's signature move, blending experiences in ways that create something totally fresh. Or check out Cynthia Bar and Bistro, a standout spot that opened in late 2023 and quickly became a local favorite. Known for its warm atmosphere and beautifully designed space, it's the kind of place that feels both upscale and welcoming. The chef crafts a seasonal menu that keeps things fresh and interesting, highlighting local ingredients and creative twists on classic dishes. For the fancy food lovers, there's Caillou, a tasty menu spot from Chef Paulo Danca that's generating serious buzz nationwide. After training at some top-tier restaurants around the world, Danca came back to DC and opened this tiny 24-seat restaurant focusing on progressive Filipino cuisine. The 7-course tasting menu explores its heritage through a modern lens, and since opening in January, it's already been named one of the best new restaurants in America. But what makes 8th Street special is the mix. Upscale spots, they sit right next to casual, everyday favorites. Take Taqueria Los Perez, family-run gem serving up authentic Mexican city-style street food. There's no frills, packed with flavor, and so popular, you usually see a line out the door most nights. And the dining scene just keeps getting better. Take Topori, for example, an Indian-inspired cocktail bar that's been racking up awards since its opened. Their latest concept dives into regional Indian street food, pairing bold, flavorful dishes with inventive cocktails infused with South Asian spices and ingredients. It's a fresh, exciting take that's been turning heads and drawing crowds. But 8th Street isn't just about food. It's also become one of DC's most happening late night areas. Places like Little Miss Whiskey's Golden Dollar still draw crowds with their eclectic music lineups and craft cocktails. Pie Shop combines a rock venue upstairs with an actual pie shop downstairs. That's one of my favorite places, creating one of the city's most unique spots. And Atlas Arcade offers this nostalgic experience with vintage video games and pretty generous happy hour deals. But let me tell you, this cultural renaissance goes beyond just eating and drinking. The 8th Street Fest has grown into one of DC's biggest street festivals, bringing tens of thousands of people each fall. Multiple stages showcase local musicians, the streets filled with vendors selling everything from art to clothing to food, and the entire corridor turns into a massive celebration of the neighborhood's creative energy. Plus, the weekly Fresh Farm 8th Street Market has become another community anchor, bringing fresh produce and artisanal food products to the neighborhood every Saturday. Local chefs often shop here, strengthening that farm-to-table connection that defines so much of 8th Street's food scene. What connects all these businesses is a spirit of innovation and community. Many of the places along 8th Street are independently owned, not national chains. The entrepreneurs behind them have deep connections to DC, and specifically to this neighborhood. They're not just running businesses, they're building a community. Now, let's get into what many of you are probably most curious about: the real estate market and development boom that's transforming 8th Street physically and economically. The numbers tell an incredible story. According to Rocket Mortgage's March 2025 market report, the median home price in the 8th Street corridor now stands at $927,000. That's a 10.8% year-over-year increase, way outpacing both the broader DC market and inflation. 10 years ago, you could have bought property here for maybe a third of that price. The appreciation curve has been bonkers. But here's something interesting. Despite these rising prices, 8th Street is still somewhat of a buyer's market. The same report shows that about 67% of homes are selling below list price. What does that tell us? Sellers are pricing ambitiously, testing how high they can go. Buyers, meanwhile, still have some room for negotiation. Pretty rare in DC, typically cutthroat market. Another telling stat is days on market, which has been cut nearly in half compared to previous years. Properties are now selling in an average of just 26 days. This quick turnover shows strong demand, with serious buyers ready to pounce when the right property pops up. Now, these market dynamics have fueled a wave of development that's shaping the board. Probably the most ambitious project in the pipeline is 1207 8th Street Northeast. This proposed 210-unit development will transform an entire city block. What's unique about this project is its incorporation of a series of green space moves running through the property, creating semi-public spaces you can access from 8th Street. The development team has committed to making 20% of the units affordable, going beyond what the city requires. And another game-changing project is happening on the 1300 block. Inspired by how successful Union Market has been, developers are creating an urban market concept that will blend food stalls, retail, and event space under one roof. The project reuses a historic warehouse building, keeping its industrial character while updating everything else for modern use. This is exactly the kind of thoughtful development that preserves neighborhood character while adding new amenities. But look beyond just 8th Street itself. There are several major projects that will drive demand for 8th Street housing for the coming years. The redevelopment of the RFK Stadium site, just 1 mile east of 8th Street, will create a massive new mixed-use district with parks, housing, retail, and possibly a new stadium. This project will effectively extend DC's core east, putting 8th Street right in the middle of the newly vibrant part of the city. The continued growth, Union Market to the north, and the ongoing strength, Capitol Hill to the south, means 8th Street is increasingly surrounded by desirable neighborhoods. This central position between established and emerging hotspots reinforces its long-term value. What's particularly cool about 8th Street's development is how it's managed to maintain a human scale. Unlike parts of Navy Yard or Noma, where massive buildings take up entire blocks, 8th Street's growth has been more incremental and varied. Buildings of different heights, styles, and eras create this textured urban landscape that feels organic rather than master-planned. This careful balancing act between growth and preservation hasn't happened by accident. It's the result of engaged community groups, thoughtful developers who give the neighborhoods value, and city planning that prioritizes context-sensitive development. The result is a neighborhood that's growing rapidly, but keeping its unique character in the process. But let's keep going and talk about something that matters to a lot of people, the sense of community. Another thing that sets 8th Street apart and its intentional effort to stay diverse, support long-term local businesses, and build an inclusive community, even as the neighborhood continues to grow and change. Now, the challenge of neighborhood transformation is always how to improve without displacing. How do you bring in new stuff, fix up buildings, and attract investment without pushing out the people and businesses that give a neighborhood its soul? On 8th Street, this question has been front and center through the revitalization process. Groups like 8th Street Main Street have played a crucial role in supporting existing businesses through the transition. They provided technical help to long-term businesses trying to adapt to changing market conditions, connecting property owners with local entrepreneurs rather than national chains, and creating grant programs to help established businesses update their storefronts and interiors. As a result, you can still find businesses that have served the corridor for decades alongside the new rival. Ben's Chili Bowl, a DC institution, opened their 8th Street location in 2015 as become a bridge between old and new Washington. Same goes for Smokey's Barbershop, which has been cutting hair on 8th Street since 1964, surviving the riots and now thriving in the revitalized corridor. This commitment to preserving neighborhood legacy extends beyond businesses to housing as well. The 8th Street Community Development Corporation has worked to maintain and create affordable housing throughout the area. Their efforts have included renovating existing affordable apartments, developing new mixed-income properties, and helping long-term residents access programs that reduce property tax burdens as values rise. And get this, the planning process for new developments has also prioritized community benefit. When developers seek zoning changes or density bonuses, neighborhood groups have successfully pushed for community amenities packages that include affordable housing, public space improvements, and support for local organizations. Cultural programming throughout the corridor reflects this commitment to inclusion. Events at the Atlas Performing Arts Center represent diverse artistic traditions. The annual 8th Street Fest highlights performers and vendors from across the cultural spectrum. Even the neighborhood's newer restaurants and bars make conscious efforts to create welcoming spaces for a diverse clientele. This doesn't mean the transition has been entirely smooth or that concerns about gentrification have disappeared. Long-term residents still worry about rising costs and changing neighborhood character. Some beloved businesses have been lost to increased rents or changing consumer preferences. The balance between preservation and progress remains delicate. But what makes 8th Street a model for urban revitalization is the ongoing conversation about these issues. And rather than ignoring tensions or pretending they don't exist, the community continues to tackle difficult questions about who benefits from neighborhood change and how to ensure opportunity is broadly shared. Now, I want to tackle some common concerns people have about 8th Street, because despite all the positive changes, this neighborhood isn't for everyone, and there are legitimate questions about its future. One concern I hear all the time is about 8th Street losing its soul with all this development. It's a fair worry. We've all seen neighborhoods that become so gentrified they turn into boring, upscale enclaves with zero connections to the history. But here's why I think 8th Street is different. The revitalization has been relatively gradual, taking place over 2 decades rather than happening overnight. This slower pace has allowed for adjustments and community input along the way. The preservation of historic buildings, support for legacy businesses, and effort to maintain affordable housing options have all been to protect the neighborhood's character. Yes, 8th Street has changed dramatically, but its transformation has largely built upon its history rather than erasing it. Another objection I often hear is about pricing. With median home values approaching $1 million, is 8th Street still accessible to regular buyers? The comparison is telling here. And while 8th Street prices have definitely shot up, they're still lower than comparable properties in Shaw, Petworth, or even Navy Yard. For a centrally located, amenity-rich neighborhood within walking distance of Capitol Hill, the value proposition is still strong even at current price points. And the wide variety of housing, from small condos to large row houses, create entry points at different price levels. Transportation is another common concern. The streetcar has definitely improved connectivity, but some worry about its limited route and the neighborhood's distance from metro stations. Looking forward, though, planned streetcar extensions will eventually connect H Street to Georgetown via K Street, dramatically enhancing its transit options. Meanwhile, the neighborhood's proximity to Union Station, it's about a 10 to 15 minute walk from the western end of H Street, provides access to multiple metro lines, commuter rails, and Amtrak service. Perhaps the persistent question about H Street is simply, has it peaked? With prices already rising dramatically, is there still room for appreciation, or are new buyers getting in at the top of the market? Well, nobody has a crystal ball. There are several factors suggesting H Street has growth potential. The RFK Stadium redevelopment, which hasn't even broke ground yet, will create a massive new anchor just east of the corridor. Transportation improvements continue and enhance connectivity, and several major development parcels along the corridor remain untapped. All of these indicators suggest the neighborhood's evolution is still ongoing. Now, let's look ahead and explore what the next 5 years could bring for H Street. The east end of the corridor, which has lagged a bit behind the central and western portions in terms of development, is about to bloom. With RFK Stadium redevelopment finally moving forward after years of planning, this area will see increased interest from both developers and homebuyers. Properties on the eastern blocks of A Street, currently selling at a discount compared to those further west, represent potential opportunity for buyers willing to take a slightly longer-term view. From a price appreciation standpoint, most real estate analysts project continued growth, though likely at a more moderate pace than we've seen in recent years. Annual appreciation in the 5 to 8% range seems realistic given the neighborhood's strong fundamentals and continued investments. This would put median home values over $1.2 million by 2030. Still less than many comparable neighborhoods in Northwest DC. The commercial landscape will continue to evolve as well. We're likely going to see boutique hotels enter the market, capitalizing on H Street's reputation as a food and entertainment destination. And cultural spaces will continue to multiply beyond the anchor of the Atlas Performing Arts Center. Several developments currently in the pipeline include dedicated gallery or performing spaces reflecting the neighborhood's identity as a creative hub. The proposed H Street Arts Walk would create a connected series of public art installations running the length of the corridor. Retail corridors will continue expanding beyond A Street itself into the side streets, creating a more three-dimensional neighborhood experience. We're already seeing this happen on some streets where former residential properties are being converted to small-scale commercial uses. In terms of neighborhood identity, A Street seems ready to further cement its reputation as a center for innovation across food, retail, and the arts. The experimental spirit that has defined its revival shows no signs of slowing down. If anything, each successful venture encourages even more creative concepts to take root. For potential homebuyers and investors, H Street Story offers several lessons. First, neighborhoods with strong bonds, historic architecture, central location, and a good street grid have inherent value that can be unlocked with the right investments. Second, community-led developments tend to create more sustainable outcomes than purely profit-driven approaches. And third, patience pays off. Those who invested in H Street early and held on through its evolution have seen remarkable return, both financially and in quality of life. As we wrap up, picture 8 and H today. The streetcar passing by, people dining outside, neighbors chatting on the sidewalk. It's a vibrant scene that would have been unthinkable 30 years ago, when the area was known more for decline than community. H Street's revival shows what thoughtful urban renewal can look like, honoring its past, embracing growth, and staying inclusive. It's become a destination without losing its neighborhood feel. For anyone considering a move to DC or looking for a smart investment, H Street stands out. Its central location, charm, culture, and momentum make it one of the city's most promising corridors. Considering a move to the DC area, my team's here to make the process easier. Whether you're buying your first place or upgrading to something new, we've guided hundreds of people through the local market, and we'd be glad to do the same for you. You can reach out to me at ryan@coalitionpg.com or find all the details below. And if you're curious to learn more, stick around for the next video. It's packed with insights on the new developments coming to DC in 2025. See you in the next video.